I always told Sarah and our children that I was only afraid of death. Nothing else frightened me. Not even heights or spiders. Only the inevitability of one day facing my own mortality. I don't fear it anymore. No, I welcome it. I beg for it in these everlasting, unending moments. There is no rest for me, as I can't sleep. I'm forced to stay awake and listen for my resting place, accompanied in this void by the constant beating of my heart. It is a curse, and I don't know what I did to deserve such a fate. My family can't hear me because they believe that I'm already dead. I hear them when they visit me, though. They treat my resting place as a confessional, sharing their most intimate thoughts and beliefs, as though they are speaking to no one at all. But no, I hear them. I have no choice. It is a small gift that, over these long years, these visits have become so less frequent. Sarah was the first to stop visiting. She begged for forgiveness and understanding, as she had finally relented to our children's wishes and moved on from our union. Their stepfather was kind to them, and they were both on the path to truly seeing him as a father. I'm sure that you would want me to move forward, she told me, unable to hear my silent protests. He keeps me safe. He makes me happy. Daggers to my still beating heart. I don't think I've wished for death more than I did that day, if only to end my constant suffering. Michael was the second to stop visiting. He admitted to resenting me, to hating me for not being there, to teach him how to be a man. He blamed me for his own immaturity. It pained my heart when Renee stopped by recently to hear from my resting place that my daughter walked down the aisle with her stepfather instead of me, that she was expecting her first child in the coming months. She had the audacity to pray that I would be there to watch over my granddaughter, guiding her as she enters the world I'm so desperate to leave. I spit on her prayers. Renee believed, in her more candid moments of confession, that she was the only one to care for me after all these years. She saw her more frequent visits to my resting place as a badge of honor, something to brag to her friends about, because it made her feel like a good person. If she wished to honor her father's memory, she would have pulled the plug years ago. But of course, she insists that I wouldn't want that, which I suppose is my own fault. He was only ever afraid of one thing, she'd tell the nurses. I know he'll never wake up, but this is what my father would have wanted. Her name was Sarah. Not that anyone called her that, because Sarah knew it all. Sarah was good at math and English, art and history. Sarah knew that the sun was a star and not a planet. Sarah knew how babies were made. Most of all, Sarah knew what happened when people died. Because Sarah, at one point, had died too. Sarah talked about a before and after, a before Sarah, but she did not talk about this much. But Sarah did talk about other things. Sarah talked about hiking in beautiful places, about swimming with such colorful fish. Sarah also talked about less interesting topics, like politics. Little Sarah talked like an adult sometimes, but for someone so smart, some teachers did not like her, especially Miss Nellie. Sometimes Miss Nellie would stare at Sarah, and Sarah would stare back. The other children would be much too focused on their books, or too focused on chatting with each other to notice, but there were often moments like those, moments of tension and an unsettling connection between the two. But what everyone did notice is that Miss Nellie did not like Sarah. Miss Nellie was often cold and rude to little Miss Know-It-All, tight-lipped, tense, and never offering a smile. Miss Nellie routinely refused to look at little Sarah in the eye, but on the rare times she did, Miss Nellie seemed to look away immediately, with an anguished and fearful look in her aged face. Because little Miss Know-It-All knew it all, and Sarah knew Nellie Osborne's secret. Miss Nellie knew about before Sarah. Miss Nellie knew about the broken body her troubled son put in the water. Miss Nellie had helped him bury the body. That spoon floated atop the calm waters of the lake near the Osborne's home. She helped bury a woman, but now returned was a child. A child who on her first day of class with Miss Nellie said to her, "I know exactly what you did." I love my husband, and I know he loves me. It's there everywhere I look, from the moment I wake to his sleep-softened smile, and his fingertips tracing my jawline, to the post-its he leaves around the house when he's at work. Silly sweet notes that make me smile. It's in the text that he says he always thinks of me, the solid warmth of his arms when he comes home, and the tenderness in his eyes, the little presents he brings home, earrings, hair clips, once even a bracelet of pearls glowing like the moon. I never thought I'll find someone like him, someone who never shouts or who doesn't leave bruises, who doesn't mind if the house isn't spotless or if I've put on 5 pounds. He doesn't call me useless or go through my phone when I'm asleep, searching for evidence that I'm having an affair with every man I've ever met. Oh, he's not perfect, I know. I've seen the lipstick smudges on his shirt, the fading scratches on his skin, once even a bite mark. I know there's some things I just can't give him, but it makes what we have all the more special. There'll never be the woman who shares his life, who's waiting for him at home, who he can't live without. The one he admits he's always thinking of whenever he's with them. I know they're nothing to him, really. So when he comes home late, worn out and sweat-drenched, I kiss him hello and put his clothes in the washing machine while he showers away the grime. Make sure the dinner's hot and ready for him. Sympathize with the stories about his awful boss. Pack his lunch and set out his clothing for tomorrow. Find a space for the silver necklace in his collection. Take off the laundry and make sure the bloodstains are gone from his favorite shirt. Make sure the bins are put out before they start to smell. And when he holds me in his arms each night, I am so thankful to be the one he chooses to share his life with. Last week, I was sitting in a bar in the West End of Boston when I noticed a strange man. At first view, he seemed like your normal 30-year-old male, brown hair, subtle beard, wearing a grey raincoat. He sat next to me and offered to buy me a drink. I refused politely and asked him why. Surprised, He said,
"Don't you remember me, Matthew?"
I was startled. How could this man know my name?
"We were best friends when we were younger. We grew up just a few blocks from here and went to the same school. I'm John."
I scanned his face closely. He did seem quite familiar. Maybe what he was saying was true. Maybe John was my long-lost childhood best friend. So I pretended to recognize him, and we spent the rest of the night talking about our past. In the weeks following, John was very present in my life. We had coffee in the morning and went out for beer on the weekend. This was new for me, since as long as I could remember, I had been more of the loner type. I never had any close friends before John, and maybe it was true, we had known each other before. One night, we were having dinner, like on most Fridays, but John seemed different this time. He was acting distant and a bit colder than usual. When I asked him what was wrong, he said he had to show me something. I followed him outside towards my neighbor's house. Mary was a young widow living with her 2 sons alone since her husband died in a railroad accident. John climbed the window to Mary's house and signaled for me to join him, which I did hesitantly. We opened the window and stepped inside the empty living room. It was late, so they must be in bed, I thought.
"In the kitchen, left of the sink, there's a drawer. You will open that drawer and take the sharpest knife you find,"
said John. I was confused, but did it anyways. John dragged me upstairs and pointed me towards a door. I opened it to find Mary, sound asleep in her bed.
"Slit her throat,"
said John. I shook my head in disgust. "No,"
"Slit her throat,"
ordered John more fiercely. I felt like I wasn't in control of my body anymore. My shaking hand grasped the knife tightly as I approached the sleeping Mary. It has been 2 weeks since John pushed me to murder Mary and her 2 young boys. The police haven't found me yet, and I haven't seen John since then. I finally resolved to call my father and ask him about my supposed best friend. I asked him if he remembered anything about a friend named John from when I was younger. My dad turned, looked at me, smiled, and said, "Yes, I do remember John. He was your imaginary best friend." It's inside all of us. You may not believe this, but I work for the government. I have worked on a top secret project for over 30 years. The knowledge of what we have been doing has been slowly eating away at me, and I've realized that I have to tell someone before it's too late. I picked this platform and channel because I feel you people might believe me. Anyways, I digress. About 2040 years ago, the Egyptians ruled. You may have heard of their immortal pharaohs and animal-like gods. This sounds ridiculous, I know, but people used to live forever. When anyone else reached a certain age, roughly 30 or 40, the pharaohs killed them off, so as to avoid competition for the throne. At about the same time, a small meteor hit Earth. Despite only leaving a small crater, it left a very big impact on human history. It bore an alien plague from the Kuiper belt. It quickly spread across the Earth. Millions died within weeks. The plague still exists. You may think that it has been eradicated by now, but you would be mistaken. It's inside all of us. It is eating away your cells, mutating them and spreading like a cancer. Throughout the last couple thousand years, it has changed and mutated, optimizing itself for maximum survival. It's inside all of us. It spreads faster in some people than others, from the day you are born until the day you die. Most people don't know why you die of old age. Some people say it is just because your body is tired and worn out. It's not. As I said earlier, you should be immortal. But as the plague eats away at you, it gives you wrinkle and makes your hair turn gray because of the stress on your body. When the mutation is about to happen, you are bedridden. You then die of old age. You don't. If you were allowed to live a few days longer, you would turn. The plague would take hold, and as your body fell apart, you would attempt to kill everything you could see. When you are near that phase, you are killed. A government operative would turn off your life support while no one was in the room, or provide a faulty IV drip laced with untraceable toxins. You wouldn't reach the chain. My job is to kill. I'm based at the hospital in New York, and when anyone is about to turn, I have and will kill them. No one will notice, and the world will remain safe. Just remember that as you're lying in your deathbed, I'll be coming for you soon. I grew up in a family of 4. I tell this to the therapist, but she doesn't understand me. She simply nods and taps her pen against her notebook, as if waiting for me to divulge. But I have already told her the most important thing about me. Brother? Sister? She says casually, looking directly at me.
Sister,
I say.
she isn't as nice as she looks.
The therapist chuckles and angles her knee to match mine. Mirroring. I've read all about it. It's manipulative. Sorry to hear that, she says. Sometimes it's much harder for us to like our siblings than it is others to do so.
She killed 36 men and women over her lifetime.
I say.
Still like her?
The therapist cringes, but only for a moment, as she dashes a note onto a white page. Your mother and father?
Terrible people.
I'm noticing a pattern.
My sister's abrupt, whereas mom and dad are skilled in torture. When you hear the screams, you'll wish my sister had the job.
The therapist writes notes, enough to fill half a page. I think we're going to reduce your endoxy before next session.
And the murders?
She rests a hand on my knee and offers a sad smile. Let's park those for today.
Today. Today's all we have.
I want to know more about you, she says. I understand you might feel conflicted about all of this.
I don't.
I'm sorry?
Sister kills. My parents play. Different strokes.
Surely
And then there's me. Lucky number 4. The thoughtful one. Well, I try to be.
I'm sorry? I shrug.
I let my marks get to know me before they die.
She gasps. I smile.
Exactly. I love the look of horror as it all comes together.
I
I didn't kill Amanda. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to, but I didn't. The moment I saw my wife of 11 years having sex with some asshole in our own bed, something snapped. The dresser was next to me, and the bed on the opposite side of the room. I knew I could pull out my gun from the top drawer and nail them both onto the bed before either of them could open their filthy mouths to blur out some pathetic excuse onto why I should spare these little shits who ruined a perfectly happy marriage. But I didn't. I'm not that kind of man. Instead, I let the son of a bitch go and haven't spoken to my wife since. A few days later, I opened the door to a police officer who asked me questions about Amanda. Apparently, she was reported missing by her mother, who repeatedly tried and failed to reach her phone. I hadn't seen her for 3 days at the time, and honestly, I didn't care. This cheating bastard probably deserved whatever happened to her. I spent the next few weeks with interrogations and court trials. They seemed to have no doubt as to who was the culprit. Can't blame them after all. It would have been awfully convenient for the murderer to be the victim's ex-husband. People in law enforcement probably see the same case every other week. Luckily, there wasn't enough evidence to convict me. The whole process was soul-crushing. Months spent trying to convince people that I didn't murder the love of my life, while staring at the obvious disbelief in their eyes. I wish I had killed her. It would have been much simpler for everyone, but I didn't. No matter how angry I was, I could never do that to her. Today, as I write this, it's been exactly a year since I caught her red-handed. I miss Amanda so much, but everyone seems to have forgotten about her. I would too, if not for the fact that I still have her presence. She's still with me. I can see her. Some nights I can hear her crying, as if apologizing to me for the things she has done. At least that's how I like to see it. Sometimes she screams, making me jump out of the bed in panic. Usually, a broken finger or a rib is enough to shut her up. Sometimes she feels like resisting, and I have to bring out the knife. Oh, the horror in her eyes. She has always been frail, so I don't have to flay her a lot before she passes out. Then, I change the duct tape she chewed through with a fresh one, and go right back to my cozy bed. You see, I told you, I didn't kill Amanda. I could have shot her the moment I walked into that room, but I didn't. And I make sure that every day she wishes that I had. My son's voice doesn't echo. It's true. His voice doesn't have an echo. He was around 4 years old when we noticed it. We had been at the park playing. On our way home, we passed through a tunnel. I've always found echoes very funny, so I shouted some nonsense really loud. It bounced back right away. It made my son giggle. He shouted something, but it didn't bounce back. It was all flat. I looked at my wife. She didn't seem to notice. "Come on, buddy. Try again. Louder," I said to him. He did, but it made no difference. His voice didn't echo. I found it quite odd, but we didn't talk more about it. That night, my wife locked herself in the bathroom for hours. I could hear her sobbing in there, but she wouldn't let me in. The years passed. My wife decided to homeschool our son. Since she was a teacher, I didn't argue with her on it. Other kids can be cruel, she said as we discussed different educational options. I know what's best for him, she insisted. Our son didn't have any friends. My wife was sort of overprotective of him. He only spent time with us. He was an only child. Me and my wife had difficult time conceiving, leading us in on IVF treatments. After some excruciating months, we finally found out that she was pregnant. 9 months later, he was born. It wasn't just that his voice didn't echo that made him different. One night, when we practiced his reading skills, I started making shadow figures on the wall. I made various animals. My son thought it was hilarious, and he wanted to try as well. I helped form his grip into a figure and placed his hand in front of the lamp. I gasped. Nothing. My son did not have a shadow. This couldn't be real. I knocked on the bathroom door to tell my wife my latest discovery. She was in there again. She had been crying a while ago, just like every other night the past years. Now all I heard was silence. I called her, asking if everything was okay. No answer. I got up and grabbed a screwdriver. After minutes of struggling, I finally managed to get the door open. I found my wife lying in our bathtub. The water was dyed red from her cuts. Beside her laid a small note. It read, "To my husband, forgive me. I can't continue living this lie. Our son is dead. He died of cancer when he was 2. Your doctor told me it was your way of coping with the loss, and that it would go away, but it never did. You still believe that he exists. It breaks my heart to pretend that he's with us every day. I can't live with it anymore. I'm sorry."